Boom shika meow meow. What's up, everybody? This is your boy Eli, aka the Spirit Ambassador, and today I am going to tell you how I put this scene together using Google Tiltbrush in virtual reality. If you are watching the screen, you'll see that I am using a guide which I covered with the Hall brush, and I am using a reference of the Buddha to put some little icing brush drops all over his head, because that's the kind of helmet Buddha likes to wear when he's sitting there. Historically, and this is not true at all, he wears it kind of like how Professor X uses his danger room helmet to get into the minds of mutants. Bet you didn't know that. Speaking of mutants, I just got back from watching Venom with my boy Osei at the Alamo Draft House. I liked it. Maybe, I don't know. Sometimes you just need nonsense movies. Humor is good. It's a movie that didn't take itself too seriously. I read a bunch of reviews saying that it was like 10 years in the past, and it was a slap in the face for all the progress comic book movies have made since Batman, since the Christopher Nolan Batman. But hey, man, it's Venom, and it's fun. It's a fun movie. I don't know, if you're into Venom, go watch it. Anyhow, today's been an interesting day. I started my day off with a coffee meeting with a friend that I met recently. We were both sitting next to each other at a networking meeting that happens on Thursdays here in Dallas. And she helps ex-addicts and alcoholics with their business plans. And I thought, oh, that's really interesting. How do you find your clients? You know, because I'd imagine that, you know, it's a very niche market, finding people who struggle with addiction and are trying to still, you know, be entrepreneurs. And that's right up my alley. I mean, if you listen to my last, you'll know I'm no stranger to danger, and I have about 18 years clean off of meth. I was doing meth in the 90s, and from 96 to 2000, I was an early adopter. I was doing it before they had posters of people with no teeth, and how to find all that stuff out by myself. And I got all my teeth, and I've been healthy for a long time now. But I am really grateful for the experience, to be honest, to have learned at the age of 18 just how much I was my own worst enemy. And having that kind of gut check at that age has allowed me to focus on growth. And, you know, I've been focusing on growth ever since then. And now at 36, you know, I feel, when I look out in the world and see everybody losing their shit, I'm like, well, at least I'm not that. You know, I'm not losing my shit. I have pretty good control over my emotions and my emotional intelligence, and, you know, making art again. And so life is good. Life is good. Glad to be here another day. In the video, you see that I just switched up the lighting. I was working in the dark environment, but that default dark environment has a floor, and eventually that floor gets in the way. And I was trying to freehand. Well, I was trying to guide. I was trying to use guides to make this Buddha's body, but I thought it was just better to freehand it, at least to get the composition I was looking for. What I'm doing here with his hands is instead of doing any traditional Buddhist hand gestures, I decided to make a little heart. He's doing finger hearts. sharing the love, he's spreading the love. The name of this piece I call Buddha Lovers, after well, because it's the Buddha and there's love involved, but there's also a secondary shout out to Bone Thugs and Harmony's East 1999 Eternal album, Buddha Lover, gotta learn to smoke the Buddha. Oh god, I used to love Bone Thugs. I still do. I still listen to Crazy Bone and his indie shit, and back when I used to have like that first generation iPod with the scroll wheel with that ridiculous hard drive space, I had so many Bone Thugs tracks. I think I had, no shitting you, between Bone Thugs and Harmony's official releases and each of their independent things, I think I had about 900 Bone Thugs or Bone Thugs related tracks. I think the only place where I still even have access to those tracks is in this old 2008 iMac Pro that I have collecting dust in the corner of my apartment. It's such it runs so slow, and it takes forever to load up, and in order for me to turn it on, I gotta connect a monitor to it, and it's just, I don't know, it's on iTunes. It's all saved on my iTunes, and I don't use iTunes anymore. I'm a Spotify guy. I don't even use an iPhone anymore. I ditched the iPhone after the 4 and went to Android. I just didn't like the walled garden. It's too restrictive for me. Went to Android and stuck it out with them and never looked back. And now I'm extremely happy with my Samsung Galaxy 8. I have that stuff on power saving mode. And instead of I just have it on full HD, which is fine for I'm just using phone and texting people and shit. My battery lasts like 27 hours. I mean, I only have to charge my phone once a day, once every day and a half. It's beautiful. I thought those days were gone. I used to, before smartphones came out, it was. You would expect your phone to get you through a day without having to charge it. And, Apple has some planned obsolescence, man. Like, you get an Apple phone and that battery's good for like a week. And then all of a sudden it's fucking not good anymore. And you're fucking charging that shit all day. And you're stressing out because you've got an hour before you got to be home and that shit's gone. You see right now I'm playing with his head. I made it, and then I decided maybe I want him looking up a little bit, not down, like he's tired, and he's got a little smirk on his face. And you'll see that I'm using this icing brush to make his robes, and his hands are kind of ugly. It's fine. At the end of this, what's going to happen is it's going to get thrown into Marmoset Toolbag, and I'm going to play with the lighting, and eventually this is going to end up in a photo editor, and there's going to be healing brushes and all that stuff. So all I'm really aiming to do here, because the end goal of this particular piece is the 2D image. This is not a VR experience. It's not meant to be something that you're sitting face to face with, so I can afford to have a little bit of loose strokes here. This is specifically made for the ArtStation Japanese Shogun Challenge, and this is a cave scene that I'm imagining. And now for the rest of this, I'm just gonna go crazy with the hole brush. And when I'm using the hole brush, I'm dragging the triggers and just making these abstract shapes with my hands. And there's some rhyme and reason to it. I know that I want him to be elevated up this staircase with a bunch of rocks in a cave, but I'm really just letting it go. I'm not, I don't really care so much for the individual rocks. I just want there to be a lot of rocks, because when I throw it in a marmoset and I'm adding lights, what I want to see is I want to see a lot of shadows. I want to see a lot of places where there's highlights. And so in order to do that, we're not going for just big shapes, that don't provide a lot of nooks and crannies. We're going for lots of little tiny spaces, which is why I am just kind of putting my finger on the trigger, letting it go of the trigger, just rapid. When it comes to the things that are going to be further off in the distance, I don't really care if they're just big, bland strokes. But since the Buddha is going to be the focal point of the picture, I'm just making sure to get as geeky as I want to get. And so now I'm using a rectangular guide, and I'm just going to take the time to make a cobblestone bridge. On my last video, which really is like my first really polished video, where it's not just a 5-minute mental purge, I sped a lot up and I explained away a lot of concepts, and I got to a blank canvas to a full out scene in about 2 minutes, and that doesn't really help you. I mean, I tried to be entertaining and talk, but I also had for that particular video deleted and changed my mind on a lot of things, so there was a lot of cutting. I cut it a lot, and so I needed to put the video together in a way in which was not boring to watch. And so the goal with these tutorials is, no matter how long these things take me, is I think that I can deliver to you the gist of it all in under half an hour. And so this is sped up at 250% speed, and you can see that with the hull brush, which is a blessing in disguise, and thank you, Tiltbrush team. The cobblestone bridge and the rocks and the Buddha and all that shit comes together pretty rapidly. And that's the beautiful thing about virtual reality is it's fresh and it's new and it's exciting, and and for me at least, there's a therapeutic value. I think I get the same thing out of virtual reality crafting that my mom and dad get out of gardening. I just really enjoy doing it, and I do enjoy this day and age where I can share this with you. And the thing about virtual reality is it's so hard to share. You make something like this and you zoom it out real big, and it's awesome for you to be in, and nobody else gets to enjoy it. So I hope you get some value out of this, and if you do, please subscribe, tell your friends if you have other artists working in VR, and they get overwhelmed by just what do I do in this space? Say, well, my boy Eli, he has this workflow that he goes from Tiltbrush to Photoshop and gets these pretty solid pics, and so you're gonna see me get into a rendering program called Marmoset Toolbag. I think it's about $125, maybe $150 at the most. Maybe it's $99. I don't know. I think it cost me about $100. I bought it about a year ago. And I like that, but you don't need it. Like Tiltbrush, if you play with the lighting and you use the built-in camera, you can achieve a lot of what I achieved in the final image. Maybe not the exact same depth, but if you're good at Photoshop, maybe. So you don't necessarily need a rendering program. I just like the rendering program. I like it particularly because I can make some things emissive that weren't emissive before, and I could apply textures to some of these rocks, or I can make the water reflective in a way that just wouldn't come out. But if I really, really wanted to, and I didn't want to spend the $100 and something for a Marmoset Toolbag, I would just upload a poly, use the computer to find the perfect angle of the shot that I wanted to play with, and then I'd take a screen grab, and then I'd throw that into my photo editor, and I edit out my taskbar on the bottom and any elements of the browser or the UI, and I would just use the screen grab as the foundation of my photo processing. But if you have the expendable income and you're getting into Tiltbrush, I'm a noob with 3D. I haven't even been using Tiltbrush for a year, but I got about 425 hours clocked in, more or less, 430. It's funny because I hit 420 this week, but I'm doing Sober October. So one of you guys is going to have to fucking smoke a joint for me. The thing about Sober October is that I'm kind of peppy, It's almost, I've been drinking a lot of coffee, so maybe it's that. But by default, I'm kind of, if I don't get that without weed, I'm kind of energetic in a sense. Maybe not energetic in the sense that I'm running around and doing flips, but I feel caffeinated by default. And at night, my mind's still going, and it's hard for me to fall asleep. So, but it's good, it's good to take a little bit of a break and focus on my health. It's just been, I drink a shit ton of LaCroix, and so just being hydrated and being healthy and riding my bike and making art and being a dad, keeping up with the kiddo, and that's it, man. I just been productive as hell. Sober October has been productive as hell. Typically, I'm super productive when it comes to the art anyway, because I like making art high. But I'm also totally fine just throwing on a podcast or an audiobook. And I do find that I'm a better multitasker without weed. Weed, I get stuck on stupid. I have all these ideas, and I'll start a lot of them, and I'll be scattered. I'll be opening up the browser, and my stupid muscle memory starts typing in Facebook. It's like, I didn't even want to go to Facebook, but look, I got notifications. Start commenting on shit, and I'm like, why did I open it? Oh, yeah, I was trying to make a YouTube video. So I will say that Sober October is allowing me to focus better. And what I'm doing here is I have this workspace. I have a VR. I have room scale VR. So I'm working in an area that's about 3 meters by 3 meters, and I just selected the entire scene and shrunk it so that I could fit it all in my workspace. And so that's the beautiful thing about this whole thing is it's I can just work on that really cool Buddha, and then I can make it really small and get the background out. And you see that I was talking about all those little rocks and the shadows and stuff, and how I don't mind making bland objects in the background. Well, here we go. Lots of bland objects in the background, because it's really just filler space. I don't really care about the background. I just know I need to have one. And so just filling it up, whole brush, blah, blah, blah. And what I'm gonna do is I am making this terrain, which is the floor, and I'm gonna select all, and then I'm gonna copy and paste it on top of this floor, so that this entire scene is enclosed in rocks. So you see, selecting the rocks and copying and pasting. Boop. Oop. And all of a sudden, now we have that nice hole on the top where you can see the sunlight shine through. And so now I'm getting a sense of what this scene is going to look like. And you can see there, I was like, do I really want to use those columns? And I do. They look cool. And I do add more. This isn't the entire scene. I just wanted to give you the gist of it. I did add a little bit more columns and another bridge behind the Buddha at a later point, but I didn't record it. And right there I used the diamond hole to make water. And I had experimented making, like putting smoke in there, but I still haven't figured out how to make the smoke look the same in Marmoset. So then I brought it into Marmoset, and this is an example, and this is where I gotta play with the lighting and mess with the fog and generally find the angle that I want to capture. You know, I talked about taking a screenshot, so I could rotate around and be like, ooh, do I want to take the shot from the back? Is that the right angle? Is that the one I want to actually take into post-processing? Or do I want to grab a profile? How much foreground do I want? But ultimately, because I had designed this piece, with the Buddha and those rocks, that's where I went. And for my final image, I didn't record the process. So I took another snapshot, and right here, I'm kind of showing you the process of how I got to the final image. And so this is a secondary image that I made just for this video to really quickly show the process, because unfortunately, I just wasn't thinking when I was putting the image together. I just wasn't recording. I don't know. Hit me. I'm sorry. It is what it is. But right there, I used 3 rectangles, and I am lowering the opacity of it, and I combine. You can do this in Photoshop. This is typically what I would use, but I don't have Photoshop on my PC, so I'm using Affinity Photo, which is great. It's $50. I blurred those white rectangles with the Gaussian blur, and in the original picture that you saw in the beginning, I had that stuff at a tilt. What I did that I'm not doing here is I also took the time and added some particles by downloading a particle brush, and made it more atmospheric. I also had a rock texture brush that I downloaded for free. Just any brush you want for Photoshop, you basically just click on the kind of brush you want. Like, I want a cloud brush, and then you put that in Google, and you'll find the first link is a free download. And so what I'm doing here is, I had set up the lighting in Marmoset, and I liked it in Marmoset, but I couldn't see it in Marmoset. So I'm adding visually the lighting, but I don't want that light to affect my subject in this picture because he's already as lit as I wanted him. So I put a mask over that lighting, and I'm deleting it in the areas where the Buddha is. So you see the lighting, but the Buddha comes through full definition. So I'm using a Wacom tablet and for precision, and I'm getting all the areas that were dulled out by that Gaussian blurred white rectangle that I just added on top of the Buddha. And if you don't know how to do this stuff, you can go ahead and let me know if it's something that you'd want a tutorial in, but for the sake of sharing the process, I decided to remove the interface, because it doesn't matter if you're using Photoshop or Affinity Photo. I didn't want to get caught up with the particulars of how to get it done. I just wanted you to see the workflow. And so now, I have this Buddha, and he has these sharp edges. He has all these imperfections from the whole brush, but that's fine because I told you that I was gonna throw them in the photo editor anyway. And so here I am using the healing brush to take away the hard edges and and shape out the cheeks a little bit, make them look a little bit more round, make the nose look less sharp. Um, there's a little bit of artifacts on his chin, which I don't find sexy, and so I'm softening all that by referencing the nearby reference points that you would use with the healing brush. So you're basically just right clicking on a area next to the place that you want to heal, and doing that, and giving him a little bit more of a softer chin and less of a pointy chin, so he looks a little bit more like a Buddha who's eaten a proper meal or two. And that's basically it, guys and gals. I am just cleaning up the photo in Photoshop, cleaning up the artifacts, all the lines. Like, you see how his hands look like the fucking Crypt Keeper hands. I soften all that stuff up, and if need be, I'd get the paintbrush and find the right color I need to make it look pretty. But for the most part, everything comes along pretty fine with the healing brush, as you can see now that it actually does look like his fingers, and it's coming together just fine. And that's it. After this, I tweaked the colors. I added a LUT, and got down to this. I got the coloring I liked and added some contrast and just did the damn thing. So if you enjoyed it, please subscribe, tell your friends. You can find more information at artist.com. Hit me up on Instagram. My name is The Spirit Ambassador. Peace, y'all.